morning show here on Arise News. Well, Lagos State government have revealed plans on how schools in the state will be reopened amid the coronavirus pandemic. Schools in the state have been closed since April as part of measures to limit the spread of the virus. Well, joining us to discuss the COVID-19 safe school resumption of schools in Lagos State is Tokunbo Wahab, who is the Special Advisor on Education to Governor Babajide Sanwo-Olu. Thank you so much, Mr. Wahab, for joining us this morning. If we were to start what I would think is something at the forefront of many students' and parents' mind is what plans are in place to keep students safe once they re-enter those doors? Because as we all know, September is the month for school resumption almost in every country around the world. Nigeria isn't any different. So while these kids are preparing to go back to school next week, what plans are in place to keep them safe?
Okay, thank you very much. Let me start by saying that as a state, we were at the forefront of trying to protect our citizens and Nigerians from the unexpected effects of the pandemic. So as far back as December last year, we had started putting in place measures that will help protect our citizens. And I remember by the 15th or 16th of September, we had granted executive approvals to the Honorable Commissioner for Health in Lagos State. So by March, we knew it was apparent we had to shut down the system to curtail the spread of the pandemic. And the schools had to also be shut down. Now, if you had taken time to observe the progression, Lagos and the governor of the state took charge as the incident commander for the pandemic. And on a weekly basis, bi-weekly at times, we're updating our citizens on the steps we're taking and why we are doing those stuff. We also had to follow medicine and science. And by June, we were told this projection is by the end of July to August, we'll hit the plateau. And once you're able to hit the plateau, you can now project when you can safely come back with your students or come back to life with your pupils. Indeed. So invariably, we hit our plateau in August. The numbers are dropping. And by our projection, we have protocols in place and we're saying to ourselves, it's time we start taking our lives back to normal. Now, let me backtrack a bit. When the schools were shut, there was total shutdown of the system. But by June, we had also commenced conversations with all the stakeholders, preparatory to when and how we can put in place measures that will enable us, peradventure, we are able to open sometime towards the end of the year to have our students safely back to school. And those protocols were from NCDC. You must have your spacing out, social distancing, you must have your face mask, have your sanitizer, have your wash and basin. So across the state, by the end of July, we had commenced measures to ensure those facilities are rightly in place. Now, the governor announced that we're going to commence reopening of our schools with the tertiary. It was a deliberate process, which invariably gives us the opportunity to test run what we had put in place with the older and more matured students. Even at that, we're also ensuring that we are going to have a phased reopening and resumption for our students. What do I mean by phased reopening and resumption? When we shut down the system around March, Lagos State, through the proactiveness of Mr. Governor, ensured the students, whilst at home, we're learning through the LMS platform created for us by Vivo. So with that LMS platform, they were able to engage their lecturers, take their lectures, and then one of our institutions even had to test run by way of writing exams with the LMS. So the disruption in the academic calendar was minimal. Minimal to the extent that, yes, there was no physical interaction, but lectures were taking place across the state for our tertiary. That is Lagos State University, Lagos State Polytechnic, Adeniran Ogunsoya College of Education, Michael Otedola College of Primary Education, Lagos State College of Health Technology, and then Lagos State College of Nursing and Midwifery, and our College of Medicine. So what we chose to do from next week, on the 14th of September, is to allow physical resumption on our campuses with a caution and a measured enthusiasm. That means we're going to come back with our final year students first.
Yeah.
We allow them come back to campus with their face mask. We're putting in place already all the measures as required by the NCDC. So once we're able to face them out after their revision and their exams, then those in the penultimate classes will come on campus.
And begin to come on board.
Yes, so we are not bringing everybody back.
Yeah.
Yes, you tell me, but we are opening up the system. We are opening it up with measured enthusiasm.
All right. All right, Tokunbo. Then that will lead one to ask this question. We'll talk about capacity. We'll talk about resources. We know that this pandemic, I was discussing with Femi earlier on the program, this pandemic has eaten deep into the pockets of families, of institutions. So who is going to bear the cost of things like having those sanitizers you talked about, having those temperature checking equipment, having, all that you need, to make sure that you keep the pandemic in check? Is it just the school, or is the government playing a part? How is it being worked out?
It's a symbiotic relationship. The government is playing a very huge part. As a government, we requested from our tertiary heads what they need to safely open. And they gave us a checklist of what they'll be needing. And we are going to meet them halfway to provide those materials for them. We're already doing that, and we are taking a tour around the states to be sure they are even prepared for this. To that extent, the House Committee on Education had gone around all the tertiary institutions. So we are giving them the materials requested, and I know they are going to provide some for themselves. Now, for the people in secondary, I know for a fact the government had deployed resources to put in place everything they will need to open on the 21st. So we are providing the materials for them as a government.
Oh, that's good. Now, usually classes will contain a certain number of students or pupils. With physical distancing, this won't be possible any longer. It can't be the same. So what's the classrooms going to be like? What will happen to the overflow?
I don't think there's going to be any overflow, as it is. That's why we call it a phased resumption. Phased to the extent that, for instance, you have in the Faculty of Law, year 1 to year 5. Year 1 to year 4 are not going to resume on the 14th. Those in the final year, that's year 5, are the ones that will come back to campus on the 14th. That's next week, Monday. So that gives them space across the campus. We space them out already. And for each of those lecture theaters, we mark them. You can sit down here, there's a space in the middle, then you sit down again to your right or to your left. So it's well spaced out already. And that is why it's called phased resumption.
Let me just follow up before Femi comes in. So when then they fully resume, this question will still be there. What happens?
Now, the initial plan is let us face the resumption, and we observe the pandemic. In as much as science has told us, and medicine, that we have hit our plateau, and then we are coming down as per the numbers, we are still very cautious. So if we're able to face the resumption between now and the end of the year, by January, we know where we are, and then we do a proper assessment to decide the next phase.
Well, before we even get to the point of looking at how the next phase will be executed, if we talk about compliance, for example, I know you've already said that Lagos State government will meet these institutions halfway when it comes to resources and the things that are needed in terms of keeping hygiene at certain standards. But what about compliance? Are there any plans for punishments in place if it turns out that a class is overflowing, has more students than needed, or perhaps students aren't complying in terms of wearing face masks? There hasn't been proper protocols in place in terms of tracking who comes in and out, what their temperatures are at different types of the day. What plans do you have in place to make sure that not only do you get students back to school, but you're keeping them safe in terms of compliance once they are back?
You will not be allowed to the campus if you are not complying with all the requirements. If you don't have your face mask, you will not be allowed in. And for the temperature, we are providing that for them. And they are going to ensure these protocols are complied with. It's a no-no for us. If you can't comply with them, you can't come to campus.
Good, fantastic.
So zero tolerance in that case.
Yes.
You still want to go on because I wanted to come in there.
Go ahead.
All right. Femi raised a very good question, a very fantastic question. Then a follow-up to that question is, in the event that schools, because you talked about just students, we also talk about the school, the institution,
yes,
and then talk about, of course, the teachers. In the event that people are flouting these rules, you know human beings, how we are, what have you put in place to either punish, maybe punish, I mean, for lack of any other word to use, to make sure people are kept in check?
You see, for each of the institutions, they have their rules. And I believe for them to have chosen to say, okay, we are opening, they've done proper advocacy, and they have attached sanctions to whatever they want to do. And we'll leave them as autonomous institutions to do the right thing. It's about lives here. And we're not going to tolerate anybody flouting those protocols.
Yeah, so, you will leave. You and I agree that sometimes when you leave people, they just do what. So the question is, so what will you do in the event that people flout the rules?
They'll sanction them.
What kind of sanction?
It depends on the school.
No. I thought it would depend on the government. Which kind of sanction?
You see, there's so much you can do on the campus.
Yeah.
That's why you have a governing council, we have the Senate, and we have the management of the schools.
Okay.
So for each of the institutions, they have their own panel, they have their own committees. And I believe those committees are already in place. The protocols are out there. And if, peradventure, anybody chooses to be deviant, the system will take care of that.
All right.
If we look at primary and secondary schools and the plans to reopen those, can I ask you about whether or not there is unwavering, how do I want to put this, unwavering, essentially, I don't want a situation where you've got children in Lagos State who may go to private schools being able to benefit because of that over children who go to state-run schools. So while I know earlier on in our conversation you said that a good majority of students actually haven't missed any school, it's just the physical attendance, they haven't literally been inside their classrooms. But I know for a fact, when I look at my own family members who go to school in Lagos State, a lot of them thankfully haven't missed out on any types of lessons. Can you say that that has also been the case for children who go to state-run government primary and secondary schools? Have they missed out on any types of lessons that their private school counterparts wouldn't have?
No. Now, what we're able to deploy for them also in the course of the pandemic was to have their teachers teach them through the radio and television platforms. And at a point also, we're able to deploy hand-held tablets for them to use as students of our public schools. Now, you also need to appreciate the fact that these infrastructures can't be the same across the states. For some private schools, they were able to deploy it earlier than the others. But as a state, we ensure that our students, whilst at home, were able to enjoy the benefit of teaching.
All right. We are going to keep you on pause. I was going to follow up on that same issue, but we'll get back to you. Just hang in there. It's now time for a short break on TMS. When we come back, we'll continue with the program. Don't go away. All right, glad to have you back. You're still watching the TMS, and we have Tokunbo Wahab, Special Advisor on Education here in Lagos State. He's still with us, Tokunbo. Yes, we were talking earlier about the question of, catching up. Now, the school, we know that the issue of school calendar, there's the issue of school calendar and lost semesters, what is the government doing with the school? I mean, for 6 months, quite a long time. There's no doubt that students have lost quite some time to catch up, on or recover lost ground.
You see, it's a chicken and the egg kind of theory.
Okay.
Which comes first? Life.
Definitely.
It's when you are alive that you can start talking about, I want to complete my curriculum, I want to finish my program to be a big doctor or a teacher or a lawyer or whatever you want to be in life. So that we chose to shut it down was the most expedient and reasonable thing to do as a government. And now that we are coming back, we believe we're going to claw back the space gradually. We can't do it overnight, and the same is applying to every country in the world. You claw back the space gradually with measured enthusiasm so that you don't go back to where you were 6 months ago. So for me, clearly, we're on course with respect to, yes, for our pupils in Lagos State, they had their lectures ongoing online. But we also know for a fact that the physical interaction is part of the learning process.
When you talk about online, don't forget that some people don't even have
Internet
computers.
access.
People, I know we're discussing about this in some time. Some people don't have internet access. Some people don't have even the data. So, I mean, I understand the chicken and egg, but I'm just chipping this in.
Okay, you see, for that also, the way the lectures were structured, if you miss it at the time you meant to have it, it's not taking off the platform. The way NVivo structured it, you can go back to it at your own convenience to read it up. And then ask your questions, drop the questions on the portal, and then you have your answers from your lecturer.
Well, did they really, I mean, was it that the students and the parents, were they aware of this particular, was there enough publicity for them to be able to get into it? We're just trying to,
More than enough publicity. More than enough publicity.
All right.
And it was a continuous thing for us.
Okay.
As objectively as you can, because we know you're a special advisor to the Lagos State Governor, but as objectively as you can you identify areas in which you believe Lagos State missed the mark when it came to education and the COVID-19 pandemic?
Honestly, we never dropped the ball. The incident commander, the governor of Lagos State, from the word go, took charge of the process. And I am glad I watched him closely, I worked with him closely, and I can say to you, without fear of equivocation, that he got it right. And that is why, if you look at the numbers, not just with respect to fatality, but with respect to advocacy and our response, you give it to him. The governor had done well, very well.
Well, someone would say you're blowing your trumpet.
No, I'm not saying it as it is.
And the governor, okay, Tokunbo, fine. All right. Now, this is a very serious issue, and we cannot neglect this. What provisions have been made by government for teachers who have not been paid all this while? We know that's a challenge. I raise this question because of their psyche, and how they will relate and teach these pupils and students. Did we think about that? Have we thought about that?
I am certain Lagos State is not owing any teacher.
Oh.
I am certain Lagos State is not owing any teacher. Quote me. Lagos State, we are not owing any teacher. We are not even owing anybody. No, we are not owing civil servants.
You know that I don't know, Femi, whether you saw it. There were online, people were posting.
Oh, that is for private schools.
Oh, good,
schools.
Yeah, private schools.
For private schools, there's privity of contract.
Okay.
There's so much you can do as a state. What we did as a state was to give them palliatives.
Okay.
We sent out palliatives to those private schools and the teachers. But we can't also get involved in the issue of payment of salaries.
Yeah.
That means we are overreaching ourselves as a government.
That's correct. Yeah.
Well, again, when it comes to education, I like to make sure, she says, sitting in the comfort of a new studio. But I like to ensure, especially when we have an opportunity to speak to government representatives, to try and make sure that we have a situation where the playing field is as level as it can be. Because ultimately, when we look at the quality of education, resources do play a huge role in that. And when you say that on the one hand, Lagos State is not owing any teacher, and you can say without a doubt that no state school educated child is being left behind in comparison with private state schools, do you not think that, especially with this pandemic happening, that it is in fact students in state institutions who are feeling the brunt more than their private school counterparts? Or do you not think that there is a difference between the two pools of students?
Now, let me try to take you back history. When Mr. Governor came in last year, he made a budget, and we ran that budget to the end, the full circle. But in December last year, when he presented his budget, he increased the allocation for education by 62%. That tells you his mind is in this game and he's putting his skin in it. On infrastructure, we met some things we're not satisfied with, and we're ramping up. We're ramping up daily to meet up the standard we believe should be okay globally for our students. Are we there yet? I'll tell you no. But the pandemic had also taught us a lesson that in everything we do, leave the factor of the unknown. Mr. Governor and the Lagos State government are done exceedingly well. In the light of what we have seen now, yes, the pandemic was unexpected, but whilst it was happening, the students were having their teachings online. For the primary and the secondary, what we choose to do was use the radio platform. For most of us that have even normal telephones, you can have a radio on it and then the television platform for them. And it was also a deliberate plan so that we can have them have their teachings without losing much. Now, if you want to make a comparison between our public schools and some A-grade private schools, you will not be fair. That means you'll be putting apples with oranges. But what is the long-term plan for us as a state? The long-term plan for us as a state is bring our public schools to be at par with private schools. That our parents will be very comfortable to take their kids out of private schools and bring them to public schools. That is a long-term plan for us, and that is a projection we are working towards.
I hope that works out, because that is what is obtainable in Rwanda.
Yes.
And that was about even 5 years ago. So I hope that works out.
You see, even for Rwanda, it didn't happen overnight.
No, of course it didn't happen overnight.
So now what we have done is we have increased the budgets. We are building capacity. For the teachers in primary, we have given them a very unique platform called the EcoExcel platform. The EcoExcel platform is a handheld tool, makes the curriculum to be at par and the same across the states. And then it has a monitoring device. So from there, we're going to the secondary school. And for the tertiary, we're doing wonderfully well. That's why our Lagos State University was ranked globally as the 500.
That was
so
good.
It tells you we're doing something right, and the second in the country.
I was actually surprised when I saw that.
Why are you surprised?
I just didn't think that, that they will get there. So when I saw it, I thought it was one of those fake stories, but I eventually found out it was true. So that's quite encouraging and interesting.
And it's commendable. It's because the governor had put his skin in it.
Very commendable. Just it may be a yes or no answer, because we'll have 30 seconds. Okay. 21st, is this still sacrosanct?
Yes.
Okay.
No, we start with 14th.
I know. Then a week.
No, 21st is for gradual reopening of the secondary.
Yeah.
We're starting with the older classes, and then we trickle it down from that point.
Yeah, I know. Thank you so much, Tokunbo.
Thank you for having
Wahab,
me.
Special Advisor on Education, Lagos State. Thank you for being here.